Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Weschner-Dunning, and I am the field representative for Maryland and Delaware with Oceana. Welcome to our Ocean Steward Spotlight. We're very happy to have our guest, Risa Bell. She's the founder of Paddle of Peace, or Paddle for Peace, a nonprofit organization bringing the inner city and BIPOC community members to our coastal spaces to learn about ocean conservation and to surf. She's a biracial surfer who grew up in the island of Guam and hopes to bring more with ocean conservation work, cook, travel, and spend time at the beach. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you so much. That was a lovely introduction. I appreciate you guys having me, and I'm really excited to chat with you all.
Yeah. So let me just start by asking you, when did you fall in love with the ocean? Do you have a defining moment?
I do. So I think around maybe 4 or 5 when I was very young. I learned to swim at like 2 years old. So, already knowing how to swim, my parents felt comfortable bringing me to the ocean. Having grown up on an island, the ocean was in our backyard. So, at a very young age, I was kind of really drawn to the ocean. My name actually means of the sea in Greek. And I'm a Pisces, which is also a water sign. And so there's all of these little things that kind of connect me to the ocean. So I didn't start surfing until early or later on in life. I actually started learning in Hawaii. I would go to the beach often to hang out and swim, but water activities started later on in life.
Great. Yeah, it seems like you've had a lot of great ocean experiences. And is that something that drove you or motivated you to create your organization, Paddle for Peace?
So yeah, a little bit of both. So Paddle for Peace actually started during the George Floyd murders and all of the BLM protests. I wanted to give my friends who are surfers a place to kind of heal and to come together because people were feeling a little lost. They didn't know what to do. They didn't want to join some of the protests in fear of it turning violent. And a lot of people just didn't know where to start. So I felt called to create a space for us to come together as surfers, do a paddle out and honor him, and just really support, our community and to stand against police brutality and to stand against racism. And thousands of people ended up showing up. It just kind of like, I just carried the torch and everyone else lit the flame. So yeah, it just turned into this big paddle out. And then after that, there was a sense of what do we do now? And people were kind of looking at us to kind of lead or so I started to think, okay, maybe I don't want this to be a one-time thing. And I started to think about all of the gaps in our coastal areas and just me being a surfer, a woman of color, there's not a lot of brown or black surfers. So anytime people found out that I surfed, it was a little shocking, like, oh, you surf? And not necessarily in an offensive, kind of way. It just was a shock. And I just thought, well, when you ask a white person if they surf, you don't act shocked or you kind of just assume because surf culture has this facade and it's mainstream and you see everyone is, beach blonde and white and thin and or really in shape. Not a lot of different body types are represented in the surf. So I thought, okay, there's some work that needs to be done. Not only that, in conservation work, I'm involved with Surfrider. I sit on the board for the San Diego chapter. I used to do beach cleanups with them all the time, and I'm just like, I'm the only brown person here, And I didn't let that deter me, but I thought, how many more people think this way? And how many more people let it discourage them from getting involved because they feel they don't belong? It's the same with surfing, it's seen as a white sport, so people are not going to always go and, try new things if they don't see others looking like them. So I said, I'm going to start Paddle for Peace. And our goal is going to be to diversify the surf lineup, diversify ocean conservation work, and to build community of diverse individuals. I don't want to be a nonprofit that is mainstream, corporate, and very white. I want it to be white, black, brown, Asian, everyone coming together and really just kind of representing their culture and feeling included. So that's kind of how Paddle for Peace expanded.
Yeah, that's really great that you were able to bring people that are not normally seen as surfers to the ocean and, join this journey of ocean conservation and also changing this space. So what aspects are you most proud of so far with Paddle for Peace?
Aspects I'm most proud of is there are two that are really important and kind of on the same level. One of them is to be able to give Black men, women, and children their first experience, not only with surfing, but at the ocean. Because culturally, surfing is not a part of our culture. It's not something you see a lot of Black people do. So we had our Juneteenth event for the first time 2 years ago, and people kept saying, I've never seen so many Black people in the water. And this was a comment that was over and over again. And it just kind of, it reminded me of why I started it. It shouldn't be like a sight to see, it should be normalized. So giving not only Black people, but inner city kids, men, women, adults, their first experience with the ocean as well is super important, because we live where the beach is our backyard, and there's a lot of socioeconomic barriers, there's a lot of financial barriers, and we remove those barriers and we bring these people to the ocean for their first time and give them that experience, and just seeing the smile on their face, it means everything. And the next thing that's super important is our ability to build community. When we host events, there's people from all walks of life that join in on our events, and nobody feels left out. Everyone feels included, and they have community, they feel supported, they make friends, and these friendships are lifelong. There are people who come to our events and they just meet for the first time, and now they're besties, they're hanging out all the time, they surf together, they support one another. There's been some job opportunities that have been given as a result of our events. So being able to make those connections, and then people go back to their lives and they bring more people, or they go and they recruit others from the inner city. I know this org, they give free surf lessons. And even if someone is not willing to surf, or maybe they might be a little more scared, as long as we get them to the beach and we support them, we have games that we play on the sand. They don't have to get in the water. If they don't want to surf, we have boogie boards. If they want to swim, we pair them with a mentor so that they know that they're safe, and they're supported in their journey with the ocean, and to obviously make sure that they're safe, because statistics say, Black children do drown more than their white counterparts. Black adults do not know how to swim, versus their white counterparts. And so we try to instill ocean safety, and we don't give swim lessons yet, but we do want these communities to feel supported in their journey with water, because it can be intimidating. So yeah, that was like a long answer to say giving people their first experience and building community are the things that I'm most proud of.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, and that really kind of segues into a couple of other questions I have. I mean, one of the great aspects about your organization, as you've mentioned, is bringing BIPOC, which stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, into these coastal spaces. And you've mentioned a couple of times that, it's rare to see, Black and people of color in national parks, in beaches.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you touch on some of the reasons why this might be?
Yeah, so I mean, redlining is one of them. Historically, Black people weren't allowed to own property by the coast, and so it's kind of and systemic racism, in a nutshell. And a lot of the things I hear some people say is, "Oh, that was in the past," you need to get over it. There's no more slavery, there's no more this. But what they fail to realize is that as a result of systemic racism and redlining, Black folks are last in line. Everyone else had a head start. Yeah, we're all afforded the same opportunities now, but not a lot of people grew up with education. A lot of people didn't grow up with generational wealth that could have been obtained had their family, their ancestors, our ancestors, if they were given that opportunity to secure wealth for their generations to come. So a lot of the work that orgs like BLM, Paddle for Peace. There's like Unmar de Colores, Color the Water, For Our Neighborhood, all of these orgs that focus on BIPOC and inner city. We are all essentially working to undo the effects of systemic racism. Black people were banned from pools even, and there was a budget that the government gave to build pools in the private schools, and Blacks weren't allowed there. So just the access to the coast and to pools and all of these are, is the reason why a lot of people can't swim, or they don't have these relationships with our coastal areas or our outdoor spaces. It could be social barriers, it can be financial barriers, but the main thing is we didn't have the same opportunities. Our ancestors did not have the same opportunities. We did not grow up the same way. There's a lot of cultural differences. So that's why you don't see a lot of BIPOC out and about doing these outdoorsy type of things. But now there's a lot of orgs that kind of support these communities, mine being one of them. Like, hey, because truth be told, there's not a lot of representation. So why would someone want to go where they're going to be the only Black person or the only brown person and feel out of place or feel like they have to kind of calm down who they are? We see it all the time, even with jobs. Black women can't wear their natural hair. The men are seen as aggressive and dangerous. There's all of these stereotypes that shape the way that people view us, and which also in turn shapes the way that we interact with society.
Yeah, I think you're completely right that a lot of these spaces are lack a lot of diversity in a lot of senses. And it's important to have these spaces be available to everyone. And you're talking about diversity in the workplace, and typically a lot of these organizations are predominantly white and run by predominantly white people. And diversity, it's not just having a seat at the table, it's also that person at the table being able to have a voice that's heard and listened to. Their ideas and experiences help change and propel the organization further. So what can organizations do as a whole, especially environmental organizations, to encourage diversity?
I think they need to understand what true diversity is. It's not just kind of getting people who look different in these leadership positions. A lot of it has to do with differences in opinions, differences in culture, differences in upbringing, because the whole point of diversity is to give a point of view from a different lens. And our experiences shape who we are as people. And pulling a bunch of people from the same community, it's not beneficial, even if they do look different. I think all the communities, especially for ocean conservation orgs, the communities that are forgotten, those are the communities that need to have people at the table, because all of this affects inner city as well. All of this affects our Black communities, our brown communities, our communities in poverty. And a lot of the times they just feel forgotten. So I think having someone at the table to represent them, whether it's in a company, an ocean conservation, or wherever it may be, I think that's true diversity.
Yeah, thank you. And what can organizations also and individuals do to better elevate BIPOC organizations in a way that's meaningful and beneficial? We have this series and we try to bring in a diverse group of people to hear and elevate their organizations, but what can organizations, including ours, do differently that makes it feel more meaningful?
I think listening and really just supporting, being a true ally, and giving people of color a platform, and allowing their voices to be heard, and truly meaning it, because a lot of orgs and a lot of companies, they do it to make themselves look better and to say, hey, look at us, we're diverse. And I always say, like, we're not tokens, we're not a marketing pitch, we're human beings, and we don't want better treatment, we don't think we're better than anyone. We just want a fair chance, and we want our voice to be as loud as everyone else's. So I think an org who is genuinely interested in hearing BIPOC voices and learning, and then taking what they've learned and incorporating it into the way that they run the org, or the way they recruit volunteers, or the communities that they serve, in a real meaningful way. And then I also think these companies and these big corporations, they can put their money where their mouth is and support these orgs in a financial way, because nonprofits, we have to find donors, we have to get the money to do the work. With Powder for Peace, I fund everything personally. So we're just kind of starting to get into the swing of getting donors and things like that to help support the mission. But yeah, these companies profit off of us, off the Black community, off of, we're the consumers as well. So if they want to really support, they can support in a financial way, and then also make changes within their corporation to have people of color and people from different backgrounds in leadership positions, making changes that are going to impact these communities that they serve in a more meaningful and beneficial way. Because you can't just keep polluting a lot of these companies. And I'm going to go on a tangent here, because a lot of these corporations produce plastic, and they produce it at a cheaper rate. And guess where it goes? It goes into these communities that are poverty stricken, the communities that are not educated. That plastic is going to end up in the landfill. It's going to end up in the ocean, and it's polluting our planet. And a lot of the times they don't have any clue. They have no clue what they're doing when they consume and they buy. So these corporations do have a social responsibility to, if you're not going to educate on what you're doing or change your ways, at least financially support the orgs that will, and the orgs that are undoing the damage that you're doing to our planet and to our communities with your toxic products and your this and that. So
yeah,
that's my take on that.
No, that's true. And we have a plastics campaign where we try to bring community members and coalition partners together to show that, these companies need to be socially responsible and fiscally responsible for cleanups, for managing their waste, and being responsible for the communities that they're harming. And so and my last question is, for those people that love the ocean, but they don't know how to protect the place that they live, what are some things that individuals can do to get involved?
I think the first step is getting people to love the ocean, because people like you and I, or people who live on the coast, they love the ocean. So they're going to naturally want to protect it. It's their community. It's where they recreate. They're going to already go and seek out orgs that are doing the work. They're going to donate if they're wealthy. They're going to come and donate their time. It's the inner city orgs that we need to target. And the first step is bringing them to the ocean and helping them to fall in love with it, helping them to see the beauty of it, because they don't care about it. And why should they? Our ancestors were banned from recreating there. The ocean is not our first place that we feel comfortable and welcomed, or confident, or calm. And the ocean gives us all of these things. They give us confidence, calming, sensations when we're stressed out. And these communities don't get to experience that. So the first step and our first priority is to bring them to the coast and show them, this is your planet and you have this ocean in your backyard. This is available to you. Come and join us. And then once they fall in love with it, naturally, they're going to want to protect it. Because if you go to someone's door and just try to push all of this ocean conservation work, and you must do this to protect and join us, they're going to be like, get off my doorstep. No, why? I don't care. So our strategy is the opposite. We allow them to fall in love with it at their own pace. And when they're ready to start learning about ocean conservation work, then we teach them about that, and we get them involved in ocean conservation work and beach cleanups. But our priority is first letting them know this is yours too, because it's unfair for us to ask them to protect and clean something when they don't even feel like they're a part of it. Because it's all of our responsibility to protect our planet and to protect our oceans. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you so much for your insight, your experiences. It's been really refreshing to talk to you and hear, all about Paddle for Peace. And it sounds like a really great organization. For those in San Diego, you're located in San Diego.
Yes.
How can they get in contact with you? How can they be involved? I think we'll put up a slide here in a second that has your handle, but if you have any
Yay.
information, just let us know.
Yeah, so they can go to paddleforpeace.org, sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter, we send out emails often with what's going on, when our next events are, what our volunteer needs are. A lot of opportunities come and fall on our lap last minute sometimes. And so we don't, my friends essentially are the core volunteers of the org. Just because it's kind of, you know, sometimes there's work, sometimes there's not. But to subscribe to the newsletter would be a great way to stay involved if you want to volunteer. We're always open to surf coaches from all different backgrounds. We're always open. Anyone can join our events. Anyone can be a part of it. And we provide education. We provide education about ocean safety, conservation work. We provide education on why there, you know, if there's like a little child who's never been to the ocean and he's like, why aren't there other Black kids here? We provide education on that without going too deep into it, but we provide it in a way where he understands and feels safe, you know? So we have a whole bunch of different programs, and yeah, people can get involved on our website. They can send us an email. If it's surf related, to surf@paddleforpeace.org. Anything else can go to hello@paddleforpeace.org. Our Facebook is Paddle for Peace SD, and our Instagram is Paddle for Peace.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Risa. I really appreciate your time. Yeah.
Thank you guys, or you ladies, so much for having me. It was really fun talking to you and kind of sharing a bit of what Paddle for Peace does.
All right. Thank you, guys.